All right. Well, welcome everybody to the Fierce and Flowing podcast. I'm Monique Renee, and I have a very, very special guest with me today, and I'm going to introduce her to you now. So, Rochanda Ferrelli is an entrepreneur and professional creative. She is the CEO of Highest Awakened Potential, a coaching company designed for helping conscious entrepreneurs develop their leadership and mindset so they can take their life's work and its success to the next level. She is a professional artist, and we're going to talk about that. I'm so excited. She's known by her popular crystal art brand, Magnetic Geodes by Ro. I'm going to say Ro because that's what I call you.
It's
And
fine.
for those of you who are watching us live, you'll see this beautiful piece of artwork right behind her. And that's what we're talking about. So, Ro has worked in the personal development field for the past 15 years, having worked as a life coach for multi-sensory women, writing her best-selling book, True Friends, a revolutionary approach to cultivating conscious feminine friendships, and teaching conscious leadership in corporate based on the book, The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, in which she is certified. So, Ro, welcome. I'm so excited that you're here, and I can't wait to dive into your fierce moment, but also this incredible background that you have and all of the incredible work you've been doing and bringing to the world, both women individually and in groups, but also in the corporate world. And I know that you have a lot of new information to share, so we'll get into that as well. Is there anything else that you want to add about yourself other than what I read before we jump in?
I feel like it's so much. I'm always, whenever I have to send my bio out, I have to like edit it and remove things. So I don't need to add any more. As a creative, I feel like it's really hard. I think even as just an entrepreneur, it's hard to put ourselves in a box and really give ourselves that concise label.
Yeah,
And so I'm good with what you put, entrepreneur, professional, creative. I feel like
I
that
love
kind
that.
of wraps it up
Yeah,
essentially, but
and
there's so much going on for sure.
in and of itself, that's an important conversation to have because I think more and more individuals, I know I'm that way. And for those of you who know human design, and you may know your human design, Ro, I'm a manifesting generator. And manifesting generators typically are not here to do just one thing. We're a multitude of things. And giving ourselves permission to not put ourselves in a box is one of the easiest ways to live on purpose and to feel connected, to our higher selves. And so I feel you. I'm constantly changing my business cards. I print like 3 different business cards for different reasons. It's a little insane. So I feel you there. Um, so let's jump right on in. In this podcast, we talk about a lot of different things, but I created it with the intention of helping women in particular honor these moments in our lives when we are able to do something fierce, right? And I don't necessarily define fierce as something aggressive or, based in anger, but more of honoring, who we are, the decisions we've made, the boundaries we've created, and perhaps doing something that is so brave that we never imagined we could do that, in the past or at all in our lives. And so I'd love for you to share, what's the one fierce moment that you've experienced that you'd love for us to dive into and share with the audience today?
Yeah, thanks, Mo. I think there's definitely been a few fierce moments that come to mind, but the one that I want to talk about today is one that took me the longest time to make the decision. And that is when I was working in corporate. I worked for the same company for 14 years. I started in my 20s. I even left for a couple of years and then came back like as soon as I was done, like, with my baby, breastfeeding, raising
Yes.
my child. And, they treated me really well there. It wasn't like most of the corporate horror stories that you hear about, although
Yeah.
it definitely did have, its stressors of being in corporate and meeting those demands. But I've always been very good at manifesting. And so I just kept reinventing myself. And I think we both actually have kind of similar stories here
We
because we were
do.
in a similar, yeah. So I kept reinventing positions for myself. And by the time that I actually left, those last 3 years, I was working as a corporate leadership coach. And I was actually last 3 or 4 years, I was teaching the conscious leadership principles to about 150 employees and the leaders of the company. And I was going through a lot of training. And the thing is that I knew deep down that I was supposed to be doing something else. I
Yeah.
just knew it. And I would literally come to work almost every single day. And I would ask myself, what am I doing here? Like, what am I doing? This is a complete waste of your time. And that's actually why I had manifested this, this job as still learning personal development, but being paid very well while learning. That was a part of that manifestation.
Yeah.
I'd asked the universe for, but I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. I still need to be paid, but it would be helpful if I was on the journey of learning the tools that I'm going to be using in the future
Right.
and being paid for it. And so then that's how that came about.
Ta-da, here you go.
Yeah, literally that's what happened. And the same thing happened to you too, right?
Yeah, it's
Weren't you
amazing
working
how
at
our
a college
journeys
or
are
something like
so similar. I was at, I had jobs before this, but I was at Florida International University for 17 years.
that?
And I had
Yeah.
manifested the exact job I wanted. But when you're anywhere for that long, you start to transform. We all have moments of awakening in our life. And if we're conscious enough, speaking of consciousness, we can tune in to what's happening, what's evolving, what the questions are, and do something about it. And I did that as well. I realized that as much as I loved my job and what I was doing, I had hit a point where it wasn't fulfilling any longer. I wasn't being impactful in the way that I wanted. And I
Yeah.
needed to figure
Same.
out what that was. And long story short, through hiring a coach, which was very, very new back then, that was in 2008. I realized that I wanted to become a coach, and I found a school with a conscious leadership model. And that was my aha. That was my new work that I wanted to cultivate. And just like you, Ro, I I asked the universe, I said, if there's a way that I can continue working here, but incorporate this work into my job, get paid for it, wouldn't that be an incredible thing? And that's exactly what happened. A year later, I was brought into the executive MBA program, co-teaching leadership, bringing in this energy leadership model and coaching the executive MBA students for about 10 years, in addition to what I was already doing. Right. So even though I wanted to transition fully and wasn't able to for other reasons, I had the luxury of still being able to, keep the day job, enjoy it, but now really start to cultivate what I felt I was here to do, in my life. So what was the shift for you in your journey
So
realizing that?
yeah, so the training program that I was doing was based on the book, The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. It's a
Okay.
pretty awesome book. It's actually pretty popular in the conscious corporate
Mm-hmm.
space, which is really evolving these days because corporate is knowing that the old model is
Yeah,
not working. And, astrologically, even we have shifted
we
into a
have.
new sign, and old paradigms are falling apart and new ones are going to be born. So people are really seeking this information and
Mm-hmm.
finding ways to build their teams. Anyhow, so for me, the shift came when I signed up for this year-long program with the Conscious Leadership Group. And I'm so passionate about personal development. Like, I'm a great student when it's stuff of that nature. Anything else, math, English, nope, nah.
Preach, sister, preach.
But this, I'm like at the edge of my seat. Like, I can't wait for more. Like, I want more, 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 more. Anyways, so the shift for me came when I was just really integrating those principles, and I was teaching them also in the corporate environment. So I'm learning and teaching, embodying and
Yeah.
experimenting and having my own experiences. Now, at that point, I had only created 4 pieces of artwork in a 20-year period. But I know myself deep down as an artist. Like I was as a child. That's all I wanted for Christmas. You know, I wanted more markers and colored pencils and paints. And the only class that I gave a shit about was art class. And it
Right.
was the only class that I was guaranteed to have an A. So I knew that for myself, but I had not been really practicing any art. It kind of, I got sucked in corporate life, mom life, wife life.
Yes.
So, you know, I'm practicing all these new tools, teaching about them, really taking deep dives. And all of a sudden, this art, I had just started toying around with this geode art. It just exploded through me. Like I could not stop making it. Before I knew it, I had a 6-month wait list of people wanting to buy it. And I had just started making it. I wasn't even very good at it then, but it was undeniable. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, So the big shift for me was taking radical responsibility in my life, conscious communication.
Okay.
Okay. There's all different avenues of that. Really standing in my whole body yes. Mm.
Yes. Love that. Feel that so much.
and
Uh-huh.
and really saying no to things that were not aligned,
Mm-hmm.
and then practicing emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Those were the main things. And I'm also a Kundalini yogi, so I have that as a daily practice too. So I was bringing all of these things together, and
Mm-hmm.
my energy just, and yeah, so it was very clear to me that I couldn't continue on in this job because I had such like a disgust with some of the work that I was doing. I had totally like gone from coaching that, even though a lot of the employees, some of them really liked it, but not enough of them to make
Right.
it really worth my time.
Sure.
I want to teach people who want to learn this stuff because it's so freaking cool.
Not
Like
just
it's
learn it, but
literally,
right, like have it become ingrained in the organization, have it be something that
yeah,
is sustainable. Because like any other personal development tool, and I think this is where coaches get a little disheartened, coaches and trainers, is we've got this incredible tool. And sometimes you're hired to just come in, teach a class, go, and then there's no follow-up at all. And there's no juice. There's no juice in the learning. There's no deep rootedness of the learning. And with such an incredible tool like that, um, and to be impactful, it has to be rooted and continued, and
not
become a
only
part of
rooted and
the
continued,
culture.
it has to start at the top.
It
So leader
does.
goes first. Whoever
Yes.
the leader is, they should be practicing and embodying
Yep.
whatever it is that they want everybody else to be practicing and embodying. And if they're not, which they really weren't in the case that I was in, then it's going to fizzle out. So, it's like think of Target and Walmart, or JetBlue and Allegiant
Yeah.
Airlines. They're two companies. They do the exact same thing, but the vibe is completely different, and it has to do with the top down energy.
Yes.
So yeah, that wasn't happening, and the shift for me was really embodying those things, and then being able. My fierce moment came when my boss asked me to do a job that was going to completely change the trajectory of what I was doing, which was building a learning management software, an LMS, building that out. And it was an old software. It was very hard to navigate. It wasn't a click and drag or anything. It was like you got to go a million places to get one thing done. And like the software was just outdated, and it felt so gross in my body. And so
Mm.
standing in my no, and then feeling what my whole body yes was working for myself, that was like the bravest thing, because I had been there for so many years and I loved them, but it was time to go. But
Yeah.
I don't think I could have done it if I hadn't been practicing emotional intelligence and
Right.
really being with, because before, for years, we think of like law of attraction and other spiritual concepts that you don't want to focus on the negative too long,
Right.
or, so I was bypassing my feelings, my
Yeah.
true authentic feelings around all these things. And it just kept me in the same place.
Yeah.
I never moved. And so, yeah, that was 3 years ago.
Wow.
So I'm like, oh, I'm so
You're
glad
free.
I left.
Yeah.
I am free. I am free.
And I have to,
Um,
yeah, I mean, I celebrate this. I know how hard it is to just get up and go. I remember the end of my journey after 17 years. I was preparing myself 2 years earlier for the day that I was going to be let go. I kind of knew that it was going to happen and when it was going to happen because of all of the changes. And I could have been scared. I could have, knowing that that date was going to come, I could have done everything possible to solidify another job. I was offered other jobs in the university and I had that whole body no. I could no longer say yes to something that was not a part of my energetic field, you know?
yeah.
And it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of bravery. There's so much fear attached to it. And it does take stepping into this concept of being fierce for yourself in order to make it happen. And I just want to share with the world how I met you, because that was a whole body
Mm,
yes. Like, I'm here, on Instagram looking at my friends' posts. And of course, we have a common friend, Shivani Gupta, who is an
mm,
incredible, gifted human being. And I see her showing off this piece of work that she's creating from step one till when it's complete. And she's got goggles on and she's got a saw, and it felt so powerful and so like raw. And then when I saw the final piece, the huge geode, I was like, oh my God, like I need to do this. I need a piece, not only put my energy into it, put my intention into it. I do consider myself an artist, but not in a traditional sense, but in, the creative sense, and diving into different things, and especially through intention and energy and building stuff. And I knew that that was my next project. And boy, it took a little bit of convincing for my mother, who is an artist. I'm like, let's go, let's do this. Let's not say no. Let's just jump in. And what a beautiful, beautiful process, you
mm,
create for others, because it's not just come here and do a piece of art. You are putting all of yourself into this. You're connecting through Kundalini, which again was something on my list of things to learn and
mm,
experience, and I had never experienced it. And it was through you that I was able to do both of these things. And for 41 days after that, actually practice Kundalini every single morning. um so you brought so much to my life just from that experience, and I'm
mm.
really grateful for it. And I hope that a lot of people who hear me are like, okay, I need to hear about this, right? um yeah, so that work is just truly acceptable. No, truly, what did I want to say? Exceptional.
Exceptional. Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
knew what you were
Exceptional
trying to say.
and magical, truly magical.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, I want to celebrate you for listening. I talk a lot about flow, and part of the there's so much behind flow. There's so many different pieces that help us to create flow. But one of them is
hmm.
following our bliss. And one of them is knowing ourselves so well that we hear our body saying yes or no, and we're paying attention. And for many people in the corporate world, or in any job, really, it doesn't matter if it's corporate or not, who are experiencing overwhelm and stress and can't get out of that cycle, it's because we're not listening to ourselves and we're not honoring
Mm,
our flow, right? Um,
yeah.
and so following our bliss is one of those components that helps us to create flow, and being able to identify what that bliss is, right?
Oh
And
yeah. There was a time in my life where I did not even know what I enjoyed anymore. I had
right,
forgotten. And I had you know, on the old computers, you could put a Post-it note on the screen. So I had a Post-it note on the desktop of my work computer. And anytime I got excited about something, I wrote it on that Post-it because I was just so out of touch with myself. So I encourage anybody who feels that way to just, you can start paying attention that way and making a little note of it. And then it's like, okay, these are the things that I like to do, that I like to
Yeah,
talk about or whatever. Let me go in that direction. How can I invite more of this into my life? You can start there, you know?
absolutely. And also another great exercise that I love for people to consider is because we have those moments. We want more of these moments of really being in a state of flow where time passes. We start a project, 6 hours later, we're still doing it. And the proof that we are in a state of flow and bliss is that we have so much energy still after those 6 hours. And like, where did the time go? And I'm so
Yeah,
joyful. I have energy just flowing in my body. And I can still go home and spend time with my kids and cook a dinner and exercise because this state of flow has allowed me to really build more and more energy for myself instead of drain, my energy, which is what
yeah,
happens to most of us when we're not clear on who we are, what we're here to do, and allow ourselves to step into that, to that magic.
yeah, yeah. I've also noticed one thing that maximizes energy is having clearing conversations with people. In corporate, you can't really say authentically like how you feel because you can, but it can impact teams. And, you know, if you're not really, so a lot of times people are just suppressing like how they really feel about projects and people that they're working with in other departments and stuff. They're just holding all that in. And that's extremely draining too. I've noticed. I'm just adding to like
No, it
your,
really is. And
yeah.
I think that's a great little opening. We've already talked about, we're going to do another podcast about friendship, right? And really focusing
Yeah.
on the concept of friendship, um, and your book, which is
Mm-hmm.
magnificent. But I want to address that really quickly. And maybe you can give us some tips because part of what you discuss in the book is having these conscious conversations with our
Mm-hmm.
friends. So what are some of the ways that we can do that, right? Instead of holding everything down, what are some of the ways that we can have those conscious conversations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I use the clearing model, which
Okay.
is just a one-page document. If you go to my website, you don't even have to be a subscriber to my monthly newsletter. It's just there. You can download it. It's under the resources page. It
And
says
tell
the
us your
clearing
website
model.
real quick so everybody
Oh
can know
yeah.
what that is. Yep.
It's RochandaFerrelli.com.
Okay,
So
perfect. And I'll put it in the show
ROCH,
notes.
yeah, ROCHONDA and then FERRELLI
Okay.
.com. I know I need to have a better, easier
Row.com.
yeah, yeah, right. Working on that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I use the clearing model, and this I call it I really do refer to it as a technology. Like it's not just a conversation. This is like a technology. And that means that when you're using it, it's going to open up other components within yourself and with them. And it is a tool for self-actualization and
Yes.
healing.
Yes.
Um, it really just starts with feeling frustrated
Hmm.
and not knowing how to communicate like what your needs and what your wants are. I started conscious communication work about 10 years ago, and it started from me just not wanting to commit to so many things and needing to
Right.
create boundaries in my life, but not really knowing how to do that in a graceful way. And so that's where it started. But a big part of the clearing model is taking radical responsibility, which I talk about in my book. And
Hmm.
it's in a program that I'm going to be launching at the end of May that we're going to talk a little bit about. But taking radical responsibility for how you are co creating whatever situation is that you're dealing with that you're not happy about.
Yeah.
And the example that I use is that often as conscious creators, we're so excited about, oh, look at this front row parking spot I just manifested, or, you know, this new friend that is, I've manifested, and these free tickets to this, right? Those are all fun and great things. But I want to talk about how you're manifesting, or how we are manifesting things in our life that we don't want, and how to really stop doing that and to evolve and grow through that. And it starts by just taking radical responsibility and seeing yourself as the one who is creating this situation that is unpleasant, that is disconnected, that is in turmoil. So taking radical responsibility is part of that process. And then, it goes into looking at the facts versus the stories that you've made up in your head.
The emotional stories. Yep.
Yeah. And, that's what the brain does. It's what it's designed to do, is to make up stories, to make sense of things based on your past experiences. But really, the facts are very black and white. It's anything that a video camera picks up. So, and then everything else is a story around what that is. So, identifying that, and then practicing the emotional intelligence aspect. So when you're feeling angry, really feeling that anger, and then getting the gems, the gold underneath that feeling of anger.
Mm-hmm.
So you are no longer emotionally charged, and you can communicate with what you need, what you want, not trying to change them in any way, but just standing for what you want and knowing like the deeper value that was beneath that trigger.
I love this. And
yes, I know, it's so good.
I've seen the model.
I could talk about it forever.
No, I really love it. And I'm so happy you brought it up, because you reminded me of the tool, number one, because I had downloaded it previously from your site.
Oh, you did?
I totally did. And I'm going to go back and do it again, because God knows where I saved it. But
okay.
A situation happened recently in a group that I run. And I've been thinking about, how do I go back and bring up the issue and take them through a process to understand it, right? Bring it to consciousness. Let's bring this back to consciousness. Let's heal this. Let's get it out. Let's heal this. Let's understand what happened and why. And so I'm going to use your model. I just okay, perfect timing. I'm really excited, and I'll let you know how it goes too.
Let me know.
I want to talk about this radical responsibility, because that's a big one for me. That literally changed my life, this concept of radical responsibility. I was in my 20s, and I had this idea of what working in the corporate world would be like. I was so excited because, I had experienced my stepfather, who was CEO of his own company, and watching him and, seeing the magic he was creating in his company. He was a very conscious person, a very loving, compassionate leader. That's all I know. I hadn't worked before that. And so when I got my first few jobs out of college, it was shock and awe what I experienced. I didn't know what leadership was back then, not really, but knew who these people were and what they were in charge of, and all the responsibilities that they had, which were massive, and thinking to myself, how are they in leadership? I just don't get it. Right. And then a couple of years later, when I was able to leave 2 toxic work environments, I was sick. I became sick. And not even making the connection. And the day that I was able to leave is when all of it disappeared. And that realization was like, wow, this toxic leadership made me sick. But then the question was, how did I let that happen? Right. And this is where the responsibility came in. What did I do? What could I have done better? And that's when I was introduced to taking personal responsibility for anything that we experience in our lives, whether we think it was done to us or whether we were, a part of it. And the answer is, we're always a part of it, whether we think we are or not. And
Yeah.
that was one of the lessons and experiences that actually drove me to learning about leadership and teaching leadership later on, in life. But that's one of the most powerful ways that I feel that we can all um, really step into our fierceness and make these important transformations in our life. We can't do it without radical responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah,
I would even say, like, going back to that story of how did I, you know, create this for myself, I'm sure early on there were flags, warning signs that you ignored within yourself,
yeah.
and you were the good girl and the
Oh,
good
a thousand
employee,
percent.
and you just kept showing up. And so that's one way I would imagine,
Yeah,
I'm making up a story over here. I would imagine that that's one way in how you were responsible for those
yeah,
results. But then also, looking at it is like, wow, what an awesome experience to know that you had that hands-on experience, made
yeah,
that direct correlation, got yourself out of it, saw the change in your health, and now you have that knowing with you, and you can identify it immediately in other people,
yeah.
and you will never put yourself in another position like that. You will speak
Never.
up, you will guide
Yeah.
others. So
That was exactly
um
what happened. And,
yeah,
being right out of college and, to throw in the astrology, I'm a Pisces. I like everything to be harmonious. And, there is that good girl in me that just wants to make everything okay. And to a certain extent, that is a strength. But as we know, when we overuse our strengths, they become weaknesses.
yeah,
Um, yeah. And so that's exactly what happened. And later on, it became more about not only protecting myself from that type of energy and working on my own energy, but also being able to open the awareness and the consciousness for the leaders themselves of do you recognize your own unhealthy patterns and what this type of leadership and how you're operating is also not helping and kind of helping them to open their awareness around it. But not an easy thing. Not everybody wants to work on themselves, as you and I know.
no, they definitely don't, and but I can't blame them.
Yeah.
It's not, it's there's
Yeah,
a
not
lot of not
fun.
fun moments. For
We have a
sure.
few dark nights of the souls, right? Through those processes. But speaking of dark
Oh
nights
yeah.
of the soul, not that we want to go there, but you've had some awakenings in your life, and it sounds like one of those um awakenings has happened in your marriage. And I would love for you
Mm.
to, as much or as little as you want to share and feel comfortable sharing, I would love for you to talk about that, because this is, you know, such an important conversation today. Whether it's right or wrong, divorce rates are way, 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 way up. Um,
Yeah.
and and there's always that question, could we have done something differently? Could I have done something differently? Especially if it's a marriage where the two individuals are growing at different rates, right?
Yeah,
And
and
how do
which
we
is the
grow
case.
together? How do we grow and evolve
How do
together?
we grow together? Yeah, yes, to all of that. So yeah, I want to just first acknowledge that I'm only going to be sharing a little bit about this because I
Yeah,
have to respect my husband's privacy.
absolutely.
But I will share that through the work that I've been doing with taking radical responsibility and conscious communication and whole body yes, and um, giving and receiving feedback,
Mm,
and really embodying this very practical spiritual set of
yeah,
tools. Um, Obviously I'm using them on my life in every area all the time. And I started realizing that I didn't start realizing I'd known it for a long time. I just hadn't had the courage to really say no more.
right.
And yeah, I was growing at a different rate than my husband. I had been for years, and I had this strong desire to be in a spiritual partnership.
Yeah.
In fact, there's an excellent book by Gary Zukov called Spiritual Partnership.
Okay.
that I recommend anybody to read if they are interested in this topic. So I just decided I'm not mad. I love you so much, like more than any man other than my grandpa, you know? um, and I love you so much that I'm willing to say no and to let this relationship end, so that you can have what you want and I can have what I want. And this is what I want, you know? And so I had gotten very clear that I wanted to be in a relationship with somebody that I could talk about my weird, quirky, off the wall spiritual concepts and rabbit holes.
Yes.
The favorite part of myself.
You
I
could
wanted
marry
to
me,
share
Ro.
my life.
We would get along just fine.
We would.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be in, whoever I'm sharing my life with, I wanted to be able to share that part of myself with.
Show up
And I
wholly.
hadn't been for years because, little bits here and there, but he just wasn't open to it. And, even if somebody's acting like they're open to it, it's just not registering the same way. It's not landing. For them, it's literally in one ear and out the other. And also, some things probably made him feel uncomfortable. And so, yeah, I'm a medium, and for years, I was like really into like mediumship development and going to mediumship classes and all these books on mediumship, like all this stuff,
Yep.
right? So, that was definitely something that he was very weirded out by.
Sure.
He still might be a little bit. I don't know. It's an odd topic for the muggles,
Right.
the non-magical folk.
Exactly.
So I was just really standing in what I wanted for myself, and then having the conversations about it, and literally stepping into the unknown, like having no idea what's going to happen to our beautiful home and our daughter and the finances. And I'm working for myself at this point.
Yeah.
How am I going to afford that? Am I going to have to get on some kind of government assistance? So like, can I even get approved for that? I don't know. So you're literally, it's such a fierce, we're on the fierce pocket. It's such a fierce moment. But practicing my emotional intelligence and feeling in my body what I wanted and what I was being attracted to in other people.
Yes.
And listening to that. And it was just like my body was just like moving and wanting that. And I'm like, I can't fucking deny this anymore, like, this is what I want. I
Yes.
can't hide it in me. And it sucks because it's not with you, and taking this radical responsibility in my life in this way, ending things, sitting in that, led to my husband having a spiritual awakening. And it was so beautiful and weird and awkward. I'm not going to share what happened. I don't need to, but yeah. And we're still together and getting ready to celebrate 17 years. So
unbelievable. Wow.
I know.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks
and
for
thank you for
asking
sharing
about
that. I know it's tough, but I know that so many women and men who listen to this are going to be in that position, have been in that position, or maybe suffered the loss of a marriage because of that. Right.
Yeah.
And there's so much
Yeah,
learning in that. So I just, that's such an important topic. But I want to now shift to what you're working on now, because I remember after we did my geode, you were kind of in that space of, I'm not sure what's next. And a little bit of that muddled thinking of, I can't, I need to feel into what's next for me. And I'm unsure and I'm not clear. And boy, oh boy, have I had so many of those moments, still do. And here we are months, probably a year later, where you're so excited about what you're doing. So I would love for you to just give you the floor and share about what's coming up, and what you're putting out there in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I feel really aligned and on purpose with something that has kind of started coming through me since last August. And that is working with conscious entrepreneurs, people who are creating something in their life. So, you know, the information I've been sharing for this whole podcast, this taking radical responsibility, this conscious communication, the practicing emotional intelligence, all of these things,
Yeah.
being a presencing several times throughout the day, being in the now moment, welcoming whatever is here now and being with that, not pushing it away. Those are things that I have created breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough. In my finances, hitting 5-figure days selling artwork, in
Wow.
my marriage, seriously, like I have goosebumps and I could literally cry.
Mm.
My marriage having such a breakthrough, being able to leave a job that I was very safe and secure in after so many years, it is undeniable. And so I have these tools and I'm thinking, okay, who do I want to give this information to? Because this is next level life changing stuff. And I want to give this information to people who are creating cool things.
Yeah.
Who's creating cool things? The entrepreneurs are creating cool things. We have the ideas. We are taking action. We are invested in ourselves and in our businesses. And we have passion. And we are going after the things that we want because we know that we are creators of our own realities. And so these are the people. There's lots of conscious creators in the world, but I want to work with the entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I'm an entrepreneur.
Yep.
I'm a professional creative. These are my people.
These are your people.
Yep, these are my people. So I feel very aligned. And the first thing I'm going to be doing is a retreat. So I have a retreat coming up at the end of May, May 23rd through the 26th, called Alchemy. And it is a 4-day weekend, long 4-day, Thursday through Sunday.
Okay.
In Middle Georgia. I've rented out 153-acre. It's not a compound, but it's like this beautiful there's geodomes. Everybody's sleeping in geodomes, and it's in nature. And it's, there's fire pits and trail walks and bike trails. And we're going to be starting the day off with like Kundalini, and there's a cold plunge. There's all kind of spa amenities on the property. So I am going to be packaging up all these tools right to the point. I don't like to play around with BS. I want to give people exactly what they need in these 4 days. Package in a retreat style because it's a container. It's an intimate setting. Before we meet, there's some homework. After we meet, there's some accountability calls. There's group and one-on-one. So I've included that in there. I think that's really important. A lot of times we go to these things and then life gets in the way, and where did I integrate? Did I integrate?
Integration's
so
really important. Yeah.
Really important. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
And so I'm doing the alchemy retreat. Eventually, probably 2025, I will have a longer container where people who have attended the retreats, who have worked with me in one-on-ones or come to my workshops who feel really lit up about this, they can apply to be in my 6-month container.
Okay.
And that is going to be a place where we get to live and play with each other using these principles of radical responsibility, emotional intelligence, and it's going to take people even deeper. So if they want that.
Phenomenal.
And that's
okay.
called
So they can go to your website.
Unlocked.
Obviously, your website will have all that information. Okay. Phenomenal. I'm already imagining this plot of land with the domes and the trails and the fire pits, and oh my goodness, it sounds fantastic.
And we're going to be doing fire rituals.
Oh yes.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I just can't help it. I love it so much. I'm very excited about it, very passionate about this work. And I cannot wait to meet everybody who is going to be signing up for this thing. So
I'm so excited. So you may have already shared kind of what this is for you, but I decided I wanted to ask everybody one question, this year. This is
Oh,
season 2 of the podcast. And as you alluded to earlier in our conversation, we're going through a wave of huge transformation and change. And I think most people who listen to this podcast appreciate astrology, because if you don't, you wouldn't be listening to me, pure and simple. But as an astrologer, this shift of Pluto going into Aquarius, is exciting. It's terrifying for some, exciting at the same time, because what it's calling us to do is to really step into our power, the change we want to create in the world, to be fierce about that, to honor our differences, our uniqueness, and, the wacky parts of ourselves that sometimes we don't want to share with others, but that the world really needs, so we're in this state of transformation, of rebirth, of revolution. And the way I'm looking at it from an individual perspective is our personal revolution, right? So knowing
mm,
that we've got 20 years in this cycle, and that it's going to show up on different places in our chart. Not everybody knows what that is, and it's okay, because we kind of know intuitively what it is. What would you say, Ro, is your personal revolution? Like, where is that going to be for you, do you feel, at this moment?
well, I think that my personal revolution is showing up fully
Mm,
and unapologetically
mm,
and loving myself for who I am. People, want to talk about, um, well, how do I say this? So, and part of my own healing, and I think a part of a lot of people's healing, is feeling that we're worthy and that we are enough for the things that we want to have,
mhm.
that we dream about, those things that are in our hearts. And my personal revolution has been not just doing the work around being enough and feeling enough, but loving myself and liking myself so much that, yes, I'm enough. I'm more than enough. I'm actually perfectly designed to be doing what I'm doing in
There
some
we
weird, magical way.
are.
And I love myself and I don't need to hide.
Yeah.
And I don't need to worry about offending people.
Mhm.
Um, I need to honor my goddess
Yes.
and just show up fully and just be like, this is who I am and I like who I am. And you're going to like who I am too,
Yes.
probably. But if not, that's okay. That's okay. Whatever. We're
Yeah.
all on our own journeys here. But that's been my personal revolution, is just being able to be good with it. I think early in my spiritual journey, I mean, when I first had my spiritual awakening in my late 20s, I used to meditate in my car in a parking lot under a tree
Yeah.
around nobody else, because I was scared and embarrassed and shy. And I didn't want anybody knowing about this private part of myself
Yeah.
that I actually really loved.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's just been an evolution of being okay with uh, people not liking me
Yeah.
or not understanding me, because liking yourself and understanding yourself is really what you're after,
Yeah.
you know?
So
And that's my
beautiful.
own personal revolution. Yeah.
Yay. Thank you for sharing that. It's so
Yay.
important. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the epidemics that we do have today, is people not loving themselves and having this
Yeah.
incredible standard that is unachievable.
Oh,
And
yeah.
really, we should ask ourselves, why do we even want that,
Well, it's society. It's the machine. It's the programming. It's the brainwashing. I
Yeah,
mean, it's everywhere. We're inundated with
we
it.
are.
We're swimming in a sea of not enoughness.
Yeah.
You have to have another degree. You have to have another certification. You got to go to college for this. You're not
Yeah.
smart enough. You can't do that enough. You're not rich enough. You're too fat. You're too skinny. You're not a good parent. You need to be this way or that way. And I see that as happening for us
Yeah.
because some of us are waking up to being like, okay, I am exhausted and I'm not where I want to be.
No.
And why is that? I've done all the things that everybody said to do. And I've tried. I went to college for 10 years for a 2-year degree because I tried so damn hard. Um,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah, we need to
so,
free ourselves. And that's what this cycle is about. Pluto and Aquarius,
yeah,
free yourself. Free yourself. Just fuck it, people. Just do it. Just love yourself. Show up fully. Like, what are we waiting
yeah,
for? You know?
yeah, yeah. You take time in that, and that's a journey too. But I think taking time every single day, having a practice that grounds you with who you are and what you're going through, and it's all going to unfold exactly how it's supposed to. And just trusting in that, you
Yeah.
know?
Awesome,
Yeah.
my friend. Thank you.
You're welcome. I want to hear before I know we're like kind of we've gone on for some time, but I want to hear just a little bit about your flow program. I know you have like this flow roadmap,
Yeah.
and I would love for you to talk a little bit about that because if anybody's listening from my point of view, they might be in a corporate situation, and they might have a connection for you. I don't know. So can you share a little bit
Thank
about
you,
that?
Ro. Thank you so much. It's yeah, this work is so much fun. You know, the genesis, the beginning of this flow roadmap began when, you know, my son who's 25 is just, you know, was just I think in pre-kindergarten. And and I walked into this workshop where this beautiful woman called Jean Hayner showed us um how the facial features on our child's face could tell us their story, could tell us who they are, what
Wow.
they're here to do, what their strengths are, what they're fearful about, all of these things. And I left that workshop crying because I everything that I knew about my son was affirmed in such a deep, deep way. And we were going through some issues with the school that he was in because they weren't really honoring who he was and they were trying to force him to be in a box. And that really allowed me and gave me permission to do what I knew what was right and not place my son in among the energy of people who couldn't love him and understand him and allow him to be who he is. And so huge shifts happened there, but really the biggest shift was I said, can I get certified in this? Like, this has changed my life. This idea, and the practice is called Chinese face reading. Okay. And the
Okay, I'm
concept
writing this
is,
down.
yeah, Chinese face reading, everything on our face, everything, our features, our wrinkles, our moles, scars, redness, it
Mm,
corresponds to an emotion, a pattern, an organ in the body. It's Chinese medicine, you know?
yeah.
And but it really introduces us to who we are. Our archetypes, like this is who we are. That doesn't change, you know, it's not going to change. Some of our facial features will change as we get older. My son's facial features, some of them did change. And that means that he is now in a new element, you know, that's dominating kind of his life and his personality. Um, and so that corresponds with what's going to keep us in flow, what's going to help us to honor who we are and our gifts. So to really kind of make this short and quick, 50% of our personality comes from our face. The other 50% is our astrology, the day, you know, that we were born. And all of that information creates who we are. And there's so much richness in that. Again, it's based in the 5 elements in Chinese medicine. So I took all of that wisdom and created something called the Flow Roadmap, which not only introduces us to our 3 main archetypes and gives us our purpose, you know, like what we're here to do, and also what our biggest challenges in this lifetime, our soul voice, you know, what our soul longs for, and needs on a very practical level, and our personality, like how people really experience us, and how we're here to shine in the world. So that information never changes, but if we really understand it and honor it, we can really flow in this life and be joyful and have fewer moments where we're lost and unclear, or um saying no to the things that, we should be saying yes to, or vice versa. And this roadmap, year after year, um, gives us what is the energy guiding our year. It's going to be different for everybody. This year, I am in a rise year. This is a growth year for me. And because I know it's a growth year for me, there are certain things that I should be doing, paying attention to, um, from a health perspective, helping my body, my mind, my soul. Um, and if I follow that roadmap, then the likelihood that I'm going to be in a state of flow more often and allow the gifts that need to come to me this year to actually come, speaking of manifestation, it allows that to happen. And then month to month, it also gives you a prescription of this is the energy of the month for you. And this is how you need to honor it so that you don't go into cycles of stress, overwhelm, lack of clarity, frustration, um, sickness. So it's a very spiritual and very practical tool that helps leaders and teams stay in flow. So I've had the pleasure of bringing this into organizations now and having teams really understand each other. This is why we may not get along. This is why we're different. This is why we love each other. This is why we're great partners. So honoring each other's uniqueness and gifts in the corporate world is really, really necessary these days. And it allows us to work in harmony as a team, but also for each of us to show up in our wholeness, in our gifts, and to also ask for what we need because we understand our flow. So that's the flow roadmap in a nutshell. And I love that it's steeped in ancient wisdom. I love, this is a big part of who I am as a Pisces sun, Scorpio moon. I have my North Node in astrology in Aquarius, which is steeped in astrology. So I'm honoring who I am by using ancient wisdom and making it practical for leaders to live more consciously and in a state of flow. So that's kind of what I'm up to these days.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like there's such a huge need for this. I definitely can see people being interested in this. People
Yeah.
are always wanting to know like what's happening energetically, what's
Yeah.
happening with the stars and the planets, what's happening for them,
Yeah.
and you put it all together for them for the year,
Yeah,
which
for the
is
entire year. And for business owners, because I work with a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs too. The beauty is that your company also has a flow roadmap. It has its own energy
mhm,
based on its day
absolutely.
of incorporation. So we look at both of those together. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and we not only month to month look at their energy, but we also look at the energy of their business and honor it. Your
Yeah,
business has a
because I'm
soul.
sure that there's like a better time to be like investing or
Yes.
taking courses or launching something.
Launching versus
Um,
not launching, and just using
mhm,
that month to think about and dream about what you want. Yeah, there's different
yeah,
cycles, right? We think of
yeah. So
nature.
you can really get in sync with,
Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing. I love that.
Thank
Good
you.
for
And thanks
you.
for asking
Mm.
about it. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Um, so one more time as we wrap up, first and foremost, thank you. Thank you for sharing so much wisdom today, for breaking down the components of conscious leadership, um, for creating such a beautiful space for creative entrepreneurs, which is a growing, exploding community here in South Florida. And for sharing your fierce moment. I really value
mm,
you, and I'm grateful to you for sharing that piece of yourself. And I know it's going to help so many who are going through that journey and trying to find their fierceness within them. Um, and just one last time, let us know how everyone out there can connect with you. And
yeah, yeah. So I like to tell people. to go to my website and to jump on my newsletter if they're interested in hearing from me in their inbox. I'm not a weekly emailer, but maybe a couple of times a month, I'll send out something that will have some value. Sometimes it's meditations, Kundalini meditations, and sometimes it's just other tools like podcasts or videos or a recap of lives that I've done. So they, if they missed something, they can, catch the replay. I also have a tab of resources, all kinds of downloads that are free. These are just practical tools on emotional intelligence, the clearing model, giving and receiving feedback. So all kinds of PDFs that you can download for free on my website. And that's RochandaFerrelli.com. And it's ROCHONDA, and then F as in Frank, ERRELLI.com. And yeah.
Thank you, Ro.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you,
Big virtual
Monique.
hug to you.
Yes, yes, seriously.
And so thank you everybody for tuning in, for joining Ro and Mo today. And make sure to tune in next week. And we're going to have another amazing guest for you, sharing their fierce moment and letting us know what their personal evolution, is going to be over the next 20 years. So thanks again for joining the Fierce and Flowing podcast, and I'll catch you guys soon. Take care.